Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough, and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
Wow, we're back together, and we talked about dream vacations last week. It's going to be a letdown to go any other direction right now, especially knowing that Byron Ragains is such a big sports fan and I'm not. So this is going to be really interesting today as we get into this. Josh, are you a sports person?
Well, I do enjoy sports. I grew up, my mom went to Vanderbilt here in Nashville, Tennessee, which it's hard to be a Vandy fan. I mean, they're notoriously never win. They're kind of the bottom of the barrel of the SEC, and also like the Titans. So those are my two teams, but haven't had a lot to watch or cheer about here lately. So I guess I'll pose the question with no sports or sports now just getting back in the groove. But how have you guys been spending your time?
We are hammock people. We are big hammock people. We just moved into a new house, and part of the decision making of the house had to be, where are we going to put the hammocks? We like to read in our hammocks. We like to just swing in our hammocks. We're also big walkers, so we've been walking a lot in the evenings, kind of like what Josh was saying last week about that's been a rhythm for them. We're walking a lot in the morning and a lot in the evening. But I'm also a big creator. I like to create. I use that side of my brain. So painting, drawing, sewing, quilting. I know it's crazy, but that I need to create. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about new things that I can paint to decorate my house. So that's kind of how I've been spending my time.
Wow. Well, now describe your hammocks. What I love a hammock too. And
okay.
I have one from LL Bean I've had for 25 years.
Wow. That's incredible. We have nests. And then there's another brand, Twin Peaks, that holds 2 people at a time. I actually sent your daughter one for her birthday this year because
Really?
so much of my rest and my time with God revolves around my hammock. I don't know what it is, but we can throw a hammock up anywhere. When we go on vacation, the hammocks go with us. They go in our backyard. We've actually gone to parks as a family and set up our hammocks and just hung out in hammocks as a family.
Wow.
So we all have one and we all love them.
Well, I must confess, and part of the reason why I've had mine for 25 years is I take it out, I put it up, and used to do it every Sunday afternoon, would take a nap on Sunday afternoon. And when our kids are really small, they'd lay across my chest and we just nap together. But when I was done, I'd roll it up, bring it inside. And that's how I preserved this hammock for that many years. But I've not been able to have it out in a couple, 3 years. And I really do miss it. Well, I spend my time a little differently, but in principle, the same as Marianne. I love creating. I love organizing. And I recently, my wife and I purchased a home a ways out of Nashville. And it's on 4 acres. And one of the things that my wife was so gracious to allow me to do was to build a nice workshop. And so we have what looks like a barn, but it's a fairly decent size workshop. On one end, I store all my lawn and garden equipment, but the bulk of it, I have a wood shop. And I love woodworking. And so I've been building a French cleat system of tool hangers. If you don't know what that is, just Google it and you can go out there and look at it. And so I've built every holder in my shop from scratch. And right now I'm in the midst of a project I'll finish tomorrow. It's a rolling lumber rack that holds sheets of plywood, straight boards, scraps, the whole thing. It's quite a big item. And I've just finished my big workbench with a front cabinet vise on it and everything else. I've built it all from scratch.
Wow.
So I love getting out there. It's kind of changing lanes mentally for me. I can kind of turn everything else off. I turn on a book on tape. I've got speakers out there in my workshop, and I'm just in my own world.
Or a Renaissance man, and not just, you're like a man's Renaissance man, Ron.
Oh, I don't know. It's
French
enjoyable though.
cleats and lumber racks and
flannel
vices.
shirts.
Yeah,
That's right.
the beard.
Oh man, no flannel
see,
shirts in this summer right now, that's for sure. But yes, in the winter it can get chilly out there.
Yes, you may have seen Ron on a package of paper towels at the grocery store last time you were there. How have I been spending my time? It's funny. I have been, I guess, with what little spare time I do have, I've been educating myself on the music industry of all things. My son is signed a record contract, and I'm learning the business as his default day-to-day manager. He has a management team, but as far as the day-to-day stuff and acting as his liaison and day-to-day manager, just trying to understand the business as we go through this process of marketing and releasing and recording and how to manage budgets and all of that fun stuff. It's just been kind of exciting to walk with him through that. So that's what I've been doing with my extra time, running back and forth from studios and meetings with record executives.
Well, you know what? I think that's a reminder to all of us as parents to look around and figure out what your kids are passionate about. And like Josh has just done, educate yourself on it. If they like to play video games, educate yourself on the game and ask them to teach you. If they like music or a craft or something else, don't insert yourself 100% of the time into their whole world. They still have to have theirs, but it's a great way to come alongside them, just like Josh is doing on this venture here, and just walk them through it. And then you'll have natural conversation connectors just that are so easy to connect with your child's heart.
Mm-hmm.
What ways do you connect with your children's heart, Marianne? That you just what do you, I mean, what are they into in the midst of this the pandemic that we're dealing with, but you found a new way to connect to their heart?
I love that question. A couple things. I have gamers. My boys like games. One of them is really hardcore into sports games like Madden and 2K. And so moms out there, it can be done. You can sit down and play video games with your boys.
Yes.
So that's one of the ways I connect. It really meets their need for me to get. I don't have a clue how to run a play, ladies. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't get that, whatever. But it blesses my teenager to go sit up there with him and let him beat the tar out of me via Madden. And they love it when I read with them. Even my teenager loves it when I crawl up in the bed and we read. He's into some really difficult reading, and he's a very smart kid. So he's reading some interesting books right now, and it blesses him when we can do that together. We love to watch movies together as a family. We're connecting a lot with our children while we walk and ride bikes. That seems to be walking, in particular, walking our doodle has every night has opened up spiritual conversations like never before for our family. My little my fourth grader, who's an extreme introvert, I have to really lean in and ask questions and listen to him. And he just comes alive in the evenings when we walk. And so that's something I'm really fighting for. So those are some of the ways that I'm trying to connect with my children right now.
That's awesome. We're obviously not connecting around real life sports, are we? Well, online is good. And you're right. I love that you said beat the tar. I used to play with my son, and I am a guy, I did know what was going on, and he liked the military, style games. I remember us playing Clancy, Rainbow Six was our game back in the day. And he still beat the tar out of me. And I was in the military, but he still beat the tar out of me. And, our kids are used to us kind of being better at most things, or at least we think we're better than them. And for them to know they're better, that gives them a great boost in their own self-confidence and just, hey, I got mom, or I got dad, and it's a lot of fun in that.
My
But
kids roll on the floor laughing at me when I try to tackle Fortnite and this Minecraft. I mean, I can't figure it out. And so they love for me to play just so they can sit on the floor and roll around and laugh at me.
Props
I
to
could,
you. I get to watch my son play Fortnite every now and then, but he smokes me. Like I've tried, and he just gets frustrated. He's like, "You can watch." So I ask a lot of questions. So parents, even if you don't even think you can play and you can't get it together, just watching and having them explain how they're drubbing somebody else can be a good connection point.
that's so
Absolutely.
true.
I
So
play
true.
I play basketball with Ryman in the driveway very often, and it has got to a point where I would have to, when he was younger, I would lay back, let him score some buckets, but I could stuff him when I wanted to if he started a little too much trash talk or whatever. But now, oh, how the times have changed, and I can't beat him anymore, and it's very humbling. I cannot beat him, and he just schools me every time. And
Hey
it's
Josh.
rough.
Hey Josh, what if we broke out an Atari? How would you fare against him then?
Now, you put me on some Excite Bike or some Pitfall, and he is mine.
Watch
Like,
out.
there's no doubt. But
I know. I never understood. In our generation, we had the joystick and the fire button. Now you put what looks like the cockpit of an F-16 in your hands, and I'm
Yes.
lost. I'm
yeah,
lost. So anyway,
I'm a noob when it comes to
yeah.
video games these days, as they say.
Speaking of noobs, our guest today is not a noob. He's a veteran. He's been around a long time, and he's very good at what he does. He's a friend, he's a colleague in the professional world of publishing and resources. He and I cross paths whenever we travel together. I've grown to really appreciate this guy. We've had some good, serious conversations at Starbucks and other places along the way. But our guest today is Byron Ragains, and he has worked at David C. Cook since he was 2 years old, and you'll understand that when he tells you how long he's been there. But he's going to come out of the gate here just with incredible personality, and he and David are going to be on opposite sides of baseball teams, as you know. Do you watch baseball, Josh?
No, it is a little too slow for me, and I'm sorry for all you baseball fans that love it. I can appreciate it. Like, I will tune in October, like when it means something, but it is a slow game for me, and I'm too scatterbrained to stay focused on a man staring at another man shaking off pitches for too long.
Oh man. Marianne, what about you and Chad? Baseball?
We're kind of in the same boat as Josh. I grew up with it, but we are Rangers fans. And kind of like Josh said, when it starts to matter and the World Series begins, yes, you're a Texas Rangers fan. Yes,
I am. You know, I did my doctoral program there at DBU, and then we had D6 there for the first, 5-6 years. It's hard to travel to Dallas 7 to 10 times a year and not get sucked into the Rangers. And yeah, I am a Rangers fan.
They have a new stadium. You'll have to come check it out.
I've heard, and the other one was so beautiful. I don't understand the need for a new one. That baffled me. What is it? Tell me on the ground why they needed to do that.
I don't really know. It's actually gotten crucified a little bit. They
Okay.
say it looks like a glorified Home Depot.
Oh, really? That's funny.
But I will tell you, the Ranger Stadium in Dallas, it was really hot in the summer. I mean, it was hot. If you got certain seats, it was scorching. And so this is all air conditioned and it's beautiful on the inside. The outside looks a little Home Depot-ish, but at the end of the day, they've got an air conditioned facility. So that's good for everyone.
It wants to be Jerry Dome when it grows up.
It kind of pales in comparison to Jerry World, but they are next door to each other. So
I was going to ask, the old stadium was right next door, and they had parking problems when there was they did go late into October. So this one's no better geographically. It's still in the same spot.
Same spot, but I think they've fixed some of the parking issues, and it's not as crazy. It's a little further down, but they are pretty close to each other. So
okay,
we'll see what happens.
Very cool. Well, we're cheering for the Rangers. You'll find out really quickly. Byron Ragains is cheering for the Cubs, and David Jones, who is doing the interview, he's a colleague at Randall House. He is a big St. Louis fan. So Byron grew up in the Chicago area. David in the St. Louis area. Josh and I are in non-baseball world. We don't have anything near us here in Nashville. I guess the closest teams to us would be St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Atlanta. Is that right?
Yes, and that's typically what in Nashville, you're either a Cards, Reds, or Braves fan, and they kind of growing up, that's what we did. We have the Nashville Sounds, a AAA team, but that's more for the atmosphere. Nobody really goes for the baseball game.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to jump into Byron Ragains.
Are you concerned about your church's future? Will it serve another generation? The Bible says He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and yet we often only know how to connect to Abraham. Let D6 help you connect with each generation. Your kids and grandkids are counting on you. D6 comes from the principles of Deuteronomy 6 and helps what happens in church also happen at home. Curriculum you can trust. Discipleship that connects.
Today, I am joined by Byron Ragains. Byron Ragains has been serving the Lord's Church through his work at David C. Cook for 36 years. Byron has had a front row seat in the birth and life of family ministry. He is committed to creatively advancing the ways we reach, inspire, and equip families. Byron, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, off mic, we've had a little scuffle already.
Yeah, we have.
You are a Chicago Cubs fan.
Yes.
Longtime Chicago Cubs fan, is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
So we are showing right now that you can sometimes put your differences aside for the sake of ministry together.
We are.
Okay. You gave me this death stare.
We are. But there are some thoughts rolling around in my head right now, but I'm trying to keep it Christian. You know what I'm saying?
You gave me this look like I want to hit a walk-off against you. I want to flip my bat, and I want to stare you down as I walk off. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
So we're going to try to talk about vision and purpose in ministry today and see if we can put our differences aside for just a little bit.
We can do that.
And then we can talk trash later.
Yeah, absolutely. The rest of the conference, actually.
Yes. Or avoid each other.
That's right.
We don't know what will happen.
I like the avoiding part, too. I really do.
And who knows, when this airs, by the time we both may just be very disappointed people.
I mean, Ron Hunter will be older and a whiter beard, but, everything's going to be good.
Well, I'd like to thank Byron on making this my last podcast before I get fired. Well,
yeah, that's for sure. I might be fired too. You never know.
Well, you've basically had a front row seat to the birth of family ministry and how it started out. How has family ministry changed since you first started doing it and seeing it happen?
Wow, I think of some of the pioneers, like Jim Weidman, who's also sporting a white beard. He goes back a long ways as well. And I think it really kind of began when a number of us and many other leaders began this conversation. And again, my ministry is at David C. Cook. I've been there 36 years. And we have then and even now asking, is the way that we're going about creating curriculum and resources, is it really affecting lives both spiritually as well as really helping families do life together? And I think this intersection really took place, 15, 20 years ago when everyone really kind of began talking about family and what that means. And so I think we continue to see it progress, evolve, change every day. Being here at D6, you're seeing new voices, new people trying to and doing a really good job creating resources, a number of different resources that can equip family to be the spiritual leader, to do Deuteronomy 6 and to do it really well. So I don't think we've arrived. I think we're still on the journey. And I think to a large degree, the struggle we face, I just came out of a breakout on a leader worth following. I think what we've done is we have done all the heavy lifting with families in our church, meaning the old saying, hey, bring the kids, drop them off, we'll take care of them, and then you pick them up in the next hour and ask them how this and that went. And I think we kind of dug a pretty deep hole, and we're in the process of really turning the tide and really looking at what does it look like to inspire, equip, and support families to be the primary spiritual nurturer of their children. So that's kind of what I have seen kind of happening, kind of where we're at today. It's going to be great to see where we are in 25 years from now. Yeah. I mean, with technology and creativity, it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, now, I know you talk often about vision and purpose, and far too many of us get so bogged down in ministry. Sometimes we can't see past the day-to-day. At best, sometimes we can only see the week-to-week.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about why it's so important for ministry leaders to see that big picture and to know where they're going?
Yeah, Helen Keller, man, bless her heart, had a great saying that I have shared numerous times. She was once asked as a young child, what is so bad about being born blind? And her reply, so many years ago, which is still apropos for us today, her reply was, what's far worse is to be born with sight and have no vision. And I think everywhere you go these days, everyone has a vision statement, a mission statement. You have one, I have one, our company has one. And it's a very important, it's your benchmark. It's what you use and how you communicate your ministry and the intent and the purpose and what you do and what you don't do. I think a lot of times ministry leaders feel the tension of creating something that's somewhat like what the church down the street has, and when you look at their mission statements, they're just very categorically different. And so I think the casting the vision, I've said it this way too, I think ministry leaders, you're walking around with buckets of paint and brushes, and you're just constantly storytelling the vision, because most of our volunteers, right, in children's and family ministry, I mean, they're working jobs, they're mechanics, insurance salesmen, they work at McDonald's, they sell tickets at a Cardinals game. They're not thinking, hey, this is the children's and family ministry vision for my church, and I'm involved in ministry. I have no idea so it's our job as leaders to constantly be communicating the vision, because again, with no vision, you perish, you struggle. And I think being a leader worth following is the people that are under me clearly understand the hill that we're trying to take. And you get tired. I think, again, coming out of this breakout, people are tired of just constantly casting the vision. And that goes with this territory. It really does.
Yeah, and creating this vision, creating this purpose, these things aren't easy. They can't necessarily be done overnight. Now, we may come up with a mission statement overnight and, hey, we're doing this.
Yeah.
But it's not really going to be put into practice overnight. Where do we start?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you start small. And even in the breakout just now, I asked the room, 75 people probably, there were a number of people that had not yet created a mission vision statement for their ministry. And that's a place to start. That's really Vision 1.0. And so, you just check out what other churches do or what their vision statement is. We're really good at borrowing from other churches. Or, I think, we're at the largest Marriott in the world. And when you walk around this place, a friend of mine over here has got some marketing background. And when we walk around this place, you see all kinds of marketing messages that can really be incorporated into your vision statement, right? Your vision statement should really take on who you are as a church community. But really where I went with my group this last session was Vision 2.0. The question really was not necessarily do you have a vision, but rather how recently have you evaluated your vision? I think a lot of times you come to a conference like this, everybody's talking about vision. Where are you going? Where are you headed? How well are you getting there? And we kind of pump up our chest and we're feeling really good about our vision statement. But it was something that was created 10 years ago. So I really am teaching right now the importance of sitting down with your team, could just be you, and really looking at every word in your vision statement and just saying, are we really doing that? And if you're not, either do it or take that word out and put something else in there and do it. And that's kind of where I went this last session.
Well, we're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
When we return, I want to ask Byron about what happens when people aren't so happy with your vision. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a way to equip families to do discipleship in their own homes? D6 Everyday offers a new at-home bundle option, so you can reach families where they are. The same great D6 Everyday resources now bundled to fit your family. D6 Everyday at-home bundles are a great way to promote discipleship at home, especially during COVID-19 restrictions. Many churches and small groups are not gathering for worship or discipleship training, but you can resource them with teaching helps for the parents and devotion magazines for every member of the family, or about the cost of a Chick-fil-A meal. For more information, visit d6everyday.com.
We are back with Byron Ragains. We're talking about vision and purpose in ministry, and I want to talk about maybe some of the hard points that come up with that.
Sure.
How do you get people in your church, ministry leaders, especially your senior pastor, on board with what your mission, your mission? I combined mission and vision.
That's great.
Mission and vision.
I also like Moses and Noah. I've often called them noses. So it's all good.
Sure.
It's all good.
So your mission or your mission and vision, how do you get other ministers and leaders in your church on board with that? Conversations.
Talk. Communicate. I think, as a leader, a lot of times we're leading up. A lot of times we need to set with our senior pastor, our senior leaders, could be your executive pastor, whomever you report to, and you're simply asking, hey, this is where I believe we should go. Or sometimes this is kind of where I've been told to go, and this is where we're going with this vision statement. And just every once in a while, have conversations with your leadership just to get buy-in, I think, number one. And then two, I think a lot of times, even in the breakout I just did, there were a number of leaders that meet resistance, sometimes from kind of that noisy volunteer, that noisy coordinator, or maybe a part-time or a full-time staff member. That's when it gets really tough, because what happens is I'm really wanting to lead the team this direction, and you have someone else who's very opinionated wanting to go a different direction. And that's where you just have to pray a lot, discern a lot, have conversations. And I think sometimes it can be, I don't want to say ugly or nasty, but sometimes you simply have to say, look, this is what we have agreed upon as far as our vision, our mission, and where we're headed. And we need you to be okay with this. We need you to embrace this. And if not, we need to really find another place for you to serve in ministry. It doesn't happen very often, but I think we cannot allow the tail to wag the dog, right? If you're a leader, you lead, and you're trying to bring all of your people along. You can't always do that. Sometimes you have to cut some of them loose, and it's tough because right now, the end of September, there's probably a number of volunteers in that breakout. They're still down 10, 15 volunteers, 5 or 6, whatever number it is. So to have to let one go because they can't get on the same page with you, often what we do as believers, Christian leaders, we just kind of like go along with it, and then this issue becomes a bigger issue, and then you've got a big mess on your hands. So discernment is a big deal.
Yeah, and you talked about that pushback, and I want to get into that a little bit more, because I've heard people talk to me about this. They say, in our youth ministry, we have parents that come to us and say, you're not doing enough events. We want more activities. We don't like where you're going with things. I've heard that about children's ministry. They say, we don't like this particular aspect of it. At what point do you listen to that criticism against your mission and vision? And at what point do you say, we still need to go the way we're going and not actually listen to some of the peanut gallery, so to speak?
I think that's a really good question. And I think it's a good thing to hold, like, not to get political, but, like a town hall meeting. Why not? Why not the problem is, the people that you really want to hear from often don't come. But if you could get a good turnout of families, and maybe the time to do this is whether it be in student ministry or children's ministry, anywhere in family ministries, you kind of cast the vision as far as this is where we're going to be going this school year. And then maybe some of these things really kind of surface, and you can ask really engaging questions. Why are you wanting us to do more events? Or Why are you wanting us to do less events? I mean, this whole D6 and all this family ministry movement that we're experiencing is kind of interesting. What a lot of us are trying to do is do less at the church and equip parents to do more at home. But I think, you want to listen to your families and maybe find some place in the middle where you can meet. But I think sometimes it's teaching and sharing with a family who is saying, look, you're only doing 2 events a year. We came from a church in Picayune, Mississippi, and they do 10 events a year. And you begin to really teach as a leader, well, why? This is why we do 2. And it could be, we actually did 15 events back in the day, but we've moved more to a model of family ministry. So we want to give you more time to be with your child and to develop them spiritually. And what we want to do as a ministry is inspire, equip, and support you. So it's kind of turning the table a different direction. It's really helping parents understand, hey, we want to do less, but we want to provide more opportunities for you to really do Deuteronomy 6 with your family.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, you mentioned earlier that sometimes we don't necessarily need a new mission statement, new vision. We need to evaluate the one we've had for 10 years. And I know a lot of our churches, you can go find it on the website. You can go find it plastered on the wall somewhere in the church. And it's been there for years, but we don't look at it very much. How do we know if we've actually achieved what we set out to do? How do we evaluate
Man, that's really good stuff. A real quick story. I shared this with my group just now. I'm kind of like Ron Hunter when it comes to like a haircut. I spend big money. I go to Supercuts, and I was at my favorite Supercuts place not long ago. Actually, it was about 5 years ago, and I've gone there for years. And Diane's cutting my kids' hair, and what hair I have, she cuts. And so I went in one morning to have my hair cut, and I noticed as I was going in, the front door was smudgy and gross, and the rug was disheveled, and there was leaves and crud all over. It hadn't been cleaned, vacuumed, and the magazines were everywhere. The television was on. All it was snow. It was just nasty looking. And so as I sat down to get my locks cut, she asked me how I was, and I said, well, I'm okay, but I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask you this because I've come here for years. You've cut my hair when I had hair. And I said, have you noticed the front entrance of the store? And she said, well, what do you mean? I look at the front door. Look how nasty that is. And I look at the rug. Oh, my gosh. Look at the tables in the magazine. Oh, my God, look. Put something on the television. Put a Cardinals game on there. Put something on there. And she said, oh, my gosh, you know something? We always come in the back door. And that struck me, and I said, wow, that really explains everything. And I think to answer your question with that long story is we have got to take time, pause, and we have to evaluate. We have to observe. And so the answer could be this is what I do for David C. Cook. I do coaching, evaluating, training, teaching. I'd love to find a ministry colleague in your city that could come on a Sunday morning and be the eyes and walk your ministry and look at the vision statement and read it and say, oh my gosh, that looks really good, but I didn't see any of that acted out this morning. I didn't see any of that really done this morning. I didn't see any of that really being done during the week. So it's asking those hard questions as you observe and evaluate. It's how we get better. And there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, that mission vision statement was great when Moses was around. But it's time to really update that. Because what happens is your demographics around your church changes. The color of your church can change. The economics of your church can change. It just happens. And whenever a Lowe's comes in near your church or a Home Depot or a Target, that's basically a big warning to you that, hey, people are coming. So we have to be swift in making sure that our vision statement is accurate and we're following it. Not like the gospel, but if we're going to use this, let's make sure it's accurate. So have somebody come in and help you evaluate it. It's a good thing. It's a healthy practice.
Well, Byron, I appreciate you sharing this. This is something that's not easy to do, but it's something that is so necessary for us to do in our churches.
Agreed.
If we want to see them last for a while and we want to see family ministry continue on.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Enjoyed it.
You are my favorite Cubs fan now.
Absolutely.
Thanks for taking that
Go
place.
Yankees.
Okay, we're going to end this now.
That's right. That's right.
Before one of us throws high and tight to the other one. And,
Ron Hunter really knows the presidents of the U.S., but I'm not sure he really knows what baseball is really all about. So God bless Ron, that's for sure. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wow, I greatly appreciate the insight that Byron gave. As a ministry leader, sometimes, the old saying, vision leaks. And sometimes I feel like a parrot just repeating the same thing over and over. And I think I'm wearing on people and they're so tired of hearing about it. But I'm so glad that he, just basically reassured me in the importance of repeating the vision over and over, and also being able to reevaluate, sometimes, and when it is time for a change or maybe a pivot. And as we talk about, the importance of vision statements in ministry. And I just think that it was very reassuring to me that, our job is to inspire and communicate to everyone we serve the mission and the hill that we're trying to take, because we live with it and, within our staff culture all the time, but realizing these people are only on campus or with us a very short amount of time. And we need to be speaking that vision and mission over them every time we see them.
Absolutely. I loved 3 points that I walked away from this conversation about vision. Is the Helen Keller quote is powerful. And it says, it would be a scary thing if we were born with sight and had no vision. Vision is valuable. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And he said something so important to me, just thinking about my own ministry. Trust God with his vision for your ministry. God is big enough. We don't necessarily have to cherry pick visions, for lack of a better word.
Right. Yeah.
But we can trust God. God is big enough, and he will reveal his vision for your ministry. He's big enough to do that. And we've got to get quiet and still and listen and lean into him and let him speak vision into you as you speak vision into your churches and your ministries. And then the last thing that he said that was really, really challenging was, you cannot allow the tail to wag the dog as a leader. You cannot allow the tail to wag the dog. You've got to lay vision. You've got to cast vision. You've got to over communicate vision. And that kind of blazes the trail in the path. And it's like you're using this spiritual machete, for lack of a better word, to cut down a path for your people to follow. And that's also what we're doing for our families. Can I just say that we're blazing a spiritual path. It's just like Paul in the scripture says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. That's our place as spiritual leaders in our families and our ministries, is we're blazing a spiritual path through the weeds for our families and for our ministries to follow us. And so I was so challenged and just so encouraged by Byron's wisdom in this episode.
You talked about the machete, and that's what he's talking about, the healthy pruning, that sometimes can take place. Because I'll be honest, as a pastor, we are wired up to want to please people. We want people to like us, but sometimes, managing that tension of the outside noise. And it may be time for, if somebody, all they have to say is negative and complaining all the time, it's like, maybe God is trying to move you from this place to another place in this season. And that's maybe not just, not that it's a bad thing, that it could just be a holy discontent that God is trying to move them away. And if I am continually trying to change everything we're doing and veering from vision to make sure this person is happy, I'm getting in the way of what God may be trying to do there and creating that healthy pruning. Because, pruning, it's just like gardening. You get rid of the stuff that doesn't need to be there so the rest can grow and flourish. And I think sometimes we, at least me, I shouldn't say we, I don't want to lump everybody in my boat, because it's a pretty wacky boat. But I want to say, that a pruning can be a healthy thing if we choose to look at it that way.
And if somebody's out there listening and they're wondering, hey, how do I swing this machete that Marianne's talked about, or how do I prune that Josh has talked about? Let me share with you a simple military analogy here. I served in the military, and I bring those principles forward into Christian ministry. And when we talk about a vision statement, it's no different than a military mission statement. You want everybody focused on the mission, and each team, each platoon, each squad, each brigade, whatever unit you talk about, you're all focused on that one item. So the first thing to ask is, in your church, is everybody focused on that one rally cry that you're trying to accomplish? Or is everybody in, and Byron used this term, silos? Is everybody trying to do their own thing? And there is a sense by which children's ministry does children, but we can focus or bring those initiatives together, whether you're in children's ministry, student ministry, adult ministry, seniors, whatever it is, we can still bring it together. And one of the ways to do this is what the military calls an after action review. Have a sit down with all your leaders. And I want to challenge lead pastors. This takes some vulnerability. You've got to be able to bring those leaders, whether they're volunteer or paid, together in a room and say, hey, let's review, and whether or not it was a major event we just occurred, or maybe it's last month's services, maybe it's the summer activities, and say what went well, what didn't go so well, and what do we need to change in order to make it better? And then listen to the input. Now, you're going to get a ton of different areas, but you're going to begin to be able to reach down and go, okay, how do we tweak our focus? How do we tweak getting away from silos? How do we swing that machete and chop off some of the things we need to get rid of, so the tail is not wagging the dog? Josh, how do you guys do it? Well, how do you get everybody focused?
Well, we tend to, like you said, we have developed an AAR. Anytime we do a big event or try something new, or we just sit down and go, okay, let's talk about what went well. We don't want to start just right off. It's the old compliment sandwich.
Yes, that's right.
This went really well, and we celebrate what went well, but we have to take an honest look. And that is one of the things that we have developed with our culture as a staff, is it's okay to miss. I'd rather try new things and swing and miss than just play it safe all the time. And that is one of the things that we've done. And even when he talked about reevaluating our mission statements, and I've been a part of churches where the kids' mission statement or vision statement is different than the students' vision statement or mission statement. And the church has a vision statements, and it gets a little blurry and it gets a little hard to remember. And, our church mission statement is to love God, love people, and make Jesus known. So our next generation or family mission is to empower kids, students, and families to love God, love people, and make Jesus known. It's the same wording, same vision, same mission all the way across the board in every area of ministry at our church. And it makes it a lot easier when it is, bite size and you can carry it with you.
Mm-hmm. I think a good starting point, I just want to encourage ministry leaders out there that I've seen work in my own context, is DNA of D6. The DNA of D6 book is a really good starting point, but there is a free church assessment evaluation that just kind of helps you evaluate where you are as a church and helps you formulate vision if you're in a place as a church leadership that you're needing to kind of restructure your vision. I think DNA of D6 and Recalibrate, the book Recalibrate, those go really good together from a resource practical perspective. I think that's a great place to start. The assessment kind of helps you as a staff evaluate, where are we? Are we siloed, or are we working as one team? And then something kind of exciting, churches are starting to hire staff members. My husband just took on a new job, and his job is ministry strategies. And his job is to make sure that every single part of the church is fulfilling the vision. He's kind of overseeing and making sure that silos aren't happening, that the vision is being fulfilled across the board for every single department and every single area in the church. I think that's an exciting thing. That's a cool shift in church structures, is, having someone that helps make sure vision is being fulfilled.
That's right. And, as we wrap up, I want you to think, if you're listening and maybe you're a parent and you think, man, I'm not a ministry leader, I'm not doing that. Let me just challenge you as a parent. And maybe you are the lead pastor. Maybe you're not on ministry staff at all. Everything that we're saying about vision statement can apply to your family. Your family needs a vision statement. And it's easy for us to stay connected when our kids are below the age of 8. But when they get above the age 8, silos creep into our family. And that's what breaks down the communication and the heart connections. And so it's time for you to pause and do an AAR inside your own family the same way. Next week, we're going to bring up Richard Mace. Rich will be with us, and he is somewhat of a special needs ministry guru. There are several out there, and we're going to feature some coming up over the coming weeks. And I'm looking forward to having him. And until next week, we'll be praying for your ministry. We'll be praying for your vision statement and for you to clearly see the silos and where to swing that machete to get certain things out of the way and focus on those strategies the right way. Until next week, you guys take care.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.